Hello and welcome to DmRobg Reviews Lost Girl, Season 1, Episode 3. I'm sorry it's been a while. I had some stuff to go through as seen in my playthrough of Derail Valley. But, nevertheless, rewatching this series has made me appreciate exactly how quickly Lost Girl actually found its legs. Many other shows take a season, if not 2 seasons, to actually get into the same place Lost Girl is. In just the first 2 episodes, many of the characters we see now have found their particular niche that they would occupy for the rest of the series. It's probably because season creator Michelle Loretta wrote these first 3 episodes. But nevertheless, Oh Kappa My Kappa opens up with Bo waking up next to Dyson, afraid that she might have accidentally killed him. Once it is revealed that he is awake, there is some bedroom banter before they roll into the bed again.
You're the first person I've ever woken up next to that isn't dead.
Well, if it's any consolation, I can now officially say they died with a smile on their face.
At which point the camera cuts to a young college co-ed named Gina Amez running from an unseen pursuer, only to find herself coming across a random gaping hole in the middle of nowhere. Apparently, nature follows the same design philosophy as the Death Star. And the opening title appears. After the opening title, Dyson and Bo are basking in the afterglow of the first ever crazy cop. Kenzie and Dyson have a semi-awkward moment. Awkward for Dyson, not for Kenzie, who seems to enjoy the entire thing. Granted, being at someone's house, being half naked, and not knowing where the toothpaste is, or forgetting to bring your own is probably kind of awkward. Now, Kenzie and Bo talk about starting a detective agency. Bo is against the idea on moral grounds, but agrees to meet a potential client. This client seeks to find her missing daughter, thinking that campus security has abandoned the case. Which, being security right now, I wouldn't be surprised if they did, because most campus security isn't really law enforcement, and Loxley College has shown to be like a 1 or 2 building campus, so they're not going to have the search and rescue capabilities of an actual police force. So Bo makes a plan to head undercover to Loxley, first heading to Dyson to check the police files on any fair-related mysteries at Loxley College. There is one where a young woman had her organs sucked out of her body. Bo finds herself undercover as security, while Kenzie's costume leaves something to be desired for poor Kenzie. What follows is a whodunit where Bo and Kenzie are looking for clues in their respective undercover identities. It's actually a great scene that is actually filled with many different misleading and red herrings. Bo finds Gina's necklace, finds out that the president is actually trying to keep the disappearances of students silent, while her head of security is taking down missing persons posters for basically that same reason. Kenzie finds that the same president is part of the sorority that Gina was a part of, and this sorority is keeping something secret in their basement. It turns out, and keep in mind this is a massive spoiler warning for what is now a decade-plus old show, that the head of security was kidnapping students and feeding them to a creature known as a Kappa, and in turn drinking the water from the Kappa's home to prolong his life. Dyson manages to save the day, killing the Kappa, and basically mauling the head of security. Gina is returned, her mind wiped with Fey Voodoo, and I'm not kidding, that is the exact wording they use. But while this A-plot is going on, B-plot involves Dyson's feelings with Bo. Evidently there was a secret agreement between Trick and Dyson that is endangered by Dyson's feelings. As a result, Trick encourages that a wedge be driven between Dyson and Bo. Now, as a result of this request, Dyson seeks out a side piece, purely to piss off Bo in the last few seconds of the episode, and Dyson insists that their relationship is just healing. Of course, this absolutely devastates Bo, and it's frankly quite well done. Overall, it's part of my top 20 episodes. I love the mystery concept, and I love that it's one of the best executed mysteries on TV I've ever seen. Namely, there are all these threads that you, the audience, pick up on, and this is also where the deception occurs. The sorority, for example, makes itself act really guilty and the leader is really absolutely fake, almost over the top preppy. The truth is, that is who the leader of the sorority is. She's a very over the top fake preppy. All that security, all that secrecy they were having was because they were throwing a surprise party for Kenzie. Then, of course, there's the dean, whose connection to the same sorority is not revealed until after it's clear that Dean Peretti is trying to keep the disappearance on the down low. But even after all of this, the sorority's innocence is kept a secret, based until the last few minutes of the episode, which, honestly, that's brilliant. You have 2 highly classed suspects, and then you have the security guard who actually did it. This way, you are kept basically guessing on who it is. You, the audience, are deceived because of what you see, but when you take away all that and you look at, like, the security guard, how he's acting, how he like sniffs Dean Peretti's dress, he's a creep. You, the audience, are given so much attention to these 2 scenes as a result of the way they're built into the episode. You miss the fact that the security guard has all these hints pointing at him. And that's frankly something I don't see in other shows. Something like I've seen shows from Bones to NCIS, and the viewer is given the probable candidate like 15 minutes toward the end of the episode. It's really quite formulaic and very boring. Like, a lot of times it's the old switcheroo where you, the audience, are denied information until it's time to reveal the episode. Like some weird bug Hodgins saw in nearly half the episodes of Bones. It's essentially, oh, we were lying to you the entire time, and there's no way you could have known this, and there's no way the viewer could process this new information. It's quite frankly dull and misleading, and I hate it. Like I said, this mystery is solvable with the items at hand. You just have to think outside the box. It was a security officer. It isn't that obvious because of the way the episode is written. For example, he's the only reason who seems upset that Bo is actually investigating the case. The sorority doesn't know. They think that Gina's left. The security doesn't know, and the dean doesn't really care. He's the one seeing tearing down the posters, and everyone else is kind of like, don't worry about it. Next big clue is, again, when Bo's seeking around Dean Parvetti's office, and the security guard sniffs in and sniffs the dean's clothes. That is clearly very predatory, and that by itself gets overlooked when the next scene is Kenzie partying with the sorority, and the sorority sisters are taking things down to the mysterious basement that was 20 minutes prior one of the big mysteries. Now, this might seem suspicious, but really, as someone who's been to college, sometimes people just drop out. They just stop showing up one day and stop going to classes. They go to the dean's office and they go to the bursar's office and say, hey, drop all my classes. They're not necessarily talking to you because you might not be their friend. You might be hanging out with them every day, but you're not emotionally connected. And that might be one of the reasons they've dropped out. The sorority sisters, the dean, they're all acting like Gina has just dropped out and went home. Now, there are several misdirects, such as when the student ID numbers are taped underneath Peretti's desk. Kenzie does have to bribe the bursar's office to get the student names, but that's completely normal. You don't give out student information, ever. The fact that Kenzie was able to bribe somebody is, quite frankly, impressive on its own. One thing I don't like is that later we do find out that Peretti was investigating the disappearances herself. There's even a line from the security guard saying that Peretti wanted these tunnels sealed off because they might have been dangerous and they might have been responsible for the disappearances. I mean, that could have been a bit more clear, instead of that just one line that can easily be missed at the climax of the episode where so much more is going on. But in the setup on the episode, it's not exactly cheating in the way Bones or NCIS cheat. Because, I mean, for in character, in scene reasons, it makes sense. But at the same time, it's not exactly clear to the audience what is going on unless you've seen it 5 or 6 times like I have. Nevertheless, Bo herself is finding her feet right now. She's learning how to weaponize her body and her powers because, holy hell, the outfit she picked is incredibly distracting. You can see her bow butt and her bow boobs right here, which I've known in other videos is actually on par with her being a succubus. She's basically flaunting her body to the best way she can, even using it as a sort of weapon. Speaking of which, the way she uses her powers episode here to control Dean Peretti to get the information is one of my favorite moments. It's one of my favorite moments in Lost Girl. It's true that she uses it quite sloppily, and while she does have the Dean under her control, the moment she gets the information, she leaves. And this winds up leading to making the Dean realize that something is off about Bo. And investigates Bo further. Granted, her investigation of Bo doesn't appear in the episode at all anymore because, I mean, why would it? But I'm going to mention this again. I like the way that it's part of the world building. Bo is new to being a succubus. She feeds on spiritual energy of people. Her powers have not been practiced. This is her screwing up because she doesn't have enough practice, and I absolutely adore that. Now, according to the scene, she can make them open to her advances, and she's left to pry for information. The skill's useful, but again, she's not used to it. She doesn't know the pitfall that she just made, and she screws up, and it's glorious. With that being said, I kind of wish it was clear exactly how much Bo affected Dean Peretti. There's still nothing about Dean finding Bo suspicious. I wish they could have gone in on that. As for the rest of the cast, it's actually solidly built. The Dean, played by Shauna McDonald, is the kind of perfect blend of authoritarian air, and this woman clearly has secrets she is holding. Which, I mean, fits perfectly with this mystery atmosphere. However, I am loving John Kappa's portrayal of Wayne, the security officer. He seems innocent at first, never showing anything until, well, it's time for him to turn the creepiest on into the fullest. And when it's time for the standard villain brag, he honestly seems quite natural. He's a sociopath. He brags about hating the students. He brags about hating Bo for protecting the students, and so his villain brag seems natural. The fact that it's only after we find that he's guilty is that any possible subtext of him being guilty is made clear to the audience, which is the fourth time I've had to make that point, but I just love that point. I mean, I really do. I mean, there is a bit of disgust in his voice when he speaks of Gina's disappearance, but at the same time, we're not exactly doing Shakespeare now. For the show we want, it's not overacted, and that's a great thing. It's acted really well, kind of like when you go to see a play, and it's not going to be Keanu Reeves as John Wick. It's not going to be Chris Hemsworth Thor. You're not going to get these big, recognizable, multi-million dollar appearances. On that note, Chris Holden-Reed as Dyson and Rick Collins' Trick is always a treat. I just love the way they are working against Bo, the way they're playing off of each other, the way they are acting shows that they are tough and in charge, and they clearly know more than they are letting on. I like how they are set up as pseudo-villains. Even when I know where the story leads, I like the way they are set up as pseudo-villains right now. It all adds up to the world being deeper than the audience realizes. And can I just say how adorable Kenzie is in this episode? The entire Parvati thing is her idea, and we are, given what we know about that secret nature of the Fae, advertising, we will believe you when others don't, is perfect. It's an absolute genius method of having the two main characters of the cast, Bo and Kenzie, interact with the world of the Fae. She dances because Bo gets laid, and this is what sends her immediately into best friend territory. She thirsts after Dyson, and that's just hilarious. On top of that, Kenzie's absolute dejection to the costume is a guilty pleasure of mine. That absolute sheer shock and disgust coming all in at once. Chef's kiss. Perfect. It actually comes through the television screen. Or the computer screen in my case. Granted, she's absolutely getting hammered in the process of this. However, this just leads to one of my favorite Kenzie moments. There's this part in the episode where Kenzie is undercover and she's at a party. She is legitimately having fun, even as she is undercover and scared for her life. She cuts loose, has an absolute blast, getting plastered, loses her wig because she is having so much fun. The real Kenzie is still there, and this party girl Kenzie is having fun like she used to do, and probably still does. This is a glimpse of who Kenzie really was when she was that age. She's so uncomfortable in a college persona that she doesn't really care that her wig falls off, and she is nearly busted in the middle of an active investigation that includes where a fae could very well be responsible for someone's death. But here she is, having fun, for once. She cuts loose, nearly blows the entire situation, but that's what we love about Kenzie. Speaking of which, this makeup on the Kappa, well, that's gorgeous. I mean, look at this thing. It literally looks like a humanoid alien. The full body makeup and costuming had to be hell. And on top of that, I actually really enjoy the fact that this fae isn't part of the normal Eurocentric fae atmosphere that we are used to seeing. We have something that not many people know much of, and as far as I can tell, is used in a way that draws upon its origins in Japanese lore. This Kappa is supposed to exist along rivers, but here we see it in a cabin with an underground river. It's chained up where it was captured by a human and is fed on humans. I don't know of any myths and Japanese myth where the Kappa feeds on humans, but the way they portrayed it draws upon the myth while Lost Girl makes its own myth. It helps the Kappa fit into the show as well as create this modern fantasy vibe the show itself is always going for. This change is actually necessary to keep the show alive. It borrows, but also adds. It respects the myths while at the same time showing you a truth. There's sort of this truth behind the myth. Other than that, I had the same complaints as the other two episodes. Other than the title music, some of the music is just generic. It fits, mind you, but like when Bo is at college, it seems so generic. When Bo gets up in the morning, it's a little bit generic, but it fits really well.
When the morning comes,
building up attention until Dyson is awake, because we, the audience, don't know if he lived or not. And it's a legitimate joy to see that he did. And if the music budget had been bigger, we'd probably have a few more like special notes to show us happy, like a 3 or 4 note joyful tune. We don't have that here. We just have the same. It's like a YouTube channel's done a movie, and it's just that same music throughout this. It's the same song throughout the entire scene. It fits fine, and it's not terrible. I'm not gonna I'm not gonna cover my ears at this music or mute the TV, but it could have been better, is what I'm saying. There are times when the shot seems somewhat clunky, like when Bo gets shocked. It keeps her at the center of the frame, but tries to hide who is holding the taser. Thing is, look at the right side of the screen. You can see that you can see the uniform. The only person who wears that uniform is Wayne. The sets are still gorgeous like they normally are. They filmed on scene at the University of St. Michael's, which all around isn't that big. Like, I went to Ball State. We had a huge campus full of like 50 buildings or something like that. It was just this massive campus that had its own police force. The Locksley College doesn't seem to be that big. No, I'm sorry, it was the Locksley College is filmed at the University of St. Michael's College of the University of Toronto. So they basically filmed a building for an entire university. You know what? That's fine. Like, it's a small college. It works. The woods themselves are always dark. They're always morose, and I love it. I love how alone Bo is when she's going through the forest. I love how Kenzie is desperately looking for her best friend as she's going through the woods. And I basically love how Dyson is, in his werewolf form, is the only one who's able to find his way through these woods that the Kappa is in. It looks like an out-of-way magical place. I would walk into this cave and I would expect to find something like a Kappa there. Find this magical creature who is trying to stay the heck away from everybody, trying to keep itself secret. And as far as Dyson goes, you can see how dated some of these effects are. I mean, it was in 2010s. I'm sure it was better in 2010, but I don't think it was impressive in 2010 either. It's, again, like a YouTube channel's done these. A really experienced, first YouTuber has done some of these effects, which they work. They're not the most terrible things. I find them acceptable, but then again, I also grew up with this type of effects. With these type of effects, I'm I mean, I will still go and play some of these 1980s games, and I'll feel nostalgic for it. These aren't the worst effects imaginable, but they're not also the most up-to-date. But I do like how they tried to hide exactly how bad these are. Dyson's change only takes a few dozen frames on screen. That's less than a second. You don't know how bad it is because you don't see it for too long. And that is how much I like about Lost Girl. Please let me know what you think in the comments below. And everyone, please have fun and enjoy.